Much for staying with us this afternoon. Very excited to welcome Catherine Hoffman Seaton, the VP of Marketing at Windsor Apparel, as well as Aaron Zagha, the CMO at Newport Baby. According to the latest research, most DTC companies spend 85% of their ad budget on Google and Meta. But is it really the right call? The ad landscape has changed so much over the past years that hitting the right audience on the right platform has become extremely harder. So we're going to be discussing ad spend diversification across all these different channels. Catherine, let's start with Aaron. Aaron is currently the CMO at Newton Baby, one of the largest DTC brands in the baby and juvenile goods industry. He was previously the head of e-commerce for Telefloras and run their international operations coming from an investment banking background. Catherine Seaton is the VP of Marketing at Windsor. As head of the global marketing team, Catherine's focus is to engage and inspire consumers through brand storytelling across all the different customer touchpoints. In this role, she's been leading the company's performance, analytics, CRM, community and ambassador programs, as well as all the branding initiatives and live video marketing strategies. Very excited to discuss ad spend with you guys. Let's start with Catherine. In terms of ad spend diversity, what are the key elements today to achieve this ad spend diversity, and what have you been focusing on?
Sure. So I think, they always tell you, even as a little kid, right, like don't put all of your eggs in one basket. And I think it's always important to diversify your ad spend. I think when you look at the landscape, even just over the last 10 years, it has changed so much. Google has changed so much. What you can do on Instagram, TikTok coming onto the stage, all of the marketplaces, the presence of Amazon, Walmart coming in, Shein, like there's just so many different places. And then when you talk to the consumer and how the consumer behavior is changing in terms of where they're starting their shopping journey, what's inspiring them, even where they're going to search, it continues to change every year. And so I think diversification is incredibly important, and you have to constantly be looking to understand what's next and what's coming. A year ago, TikTok Shop didn't exist, right? And now it's a significant player.
What would you think, Aaron, are the new trends, and what have you seen specifically in your business?
Yeah, so I mean, we generally just try to follow the attention of our customer, which is effectively a pregnant woman. So during the pandemic and the rise of TikTok, I took a volunteer from my team and said, go figure this out. And we were able to scale TikTok while it was scaling itself. More recently, I think there are other emerging channels. We're now seeing ways of optimizing even ChatGPT search results. So one of the things that I love about this industry is it's always changing, and making sure that you're staying current with the attention and the attention span of your potential customer is incredibly important.
Do you see any limits in that ads diversification? Are there channels where you're not playing yet, you don't want to play yet? What are the limits of this ads diversification for you?
I'll go first, sure. I think it really depends on the channel. I think one of the things that we look at are what are the economics of every channel we're considering being on, and then what is the customer doing on that channel? For us, why is she there? Is she going there to entertain herself? Is she going there to interact with her friends? Is she going there to shop? And then really understanding, are we trying to drive upper funnel brand awareness? Are we trying to drive conversion? And then based on that, looking at the economics of each of those channels, we'll decide which ones we want to play on. I think an example I would use is Amazon. Amazon has really moved into the apparel space in a huge way over the last 4 or 5 years. And we were on Amazon about 3 years ago. We ramped and scaled to where it was significant and meaningful to our business. But because of their economics model, we actually ended up pulling off because we were losing money on it. And so I think the thing that I always say is to my team is just because it's a trend on TikTok doesn't mean that it's a trend for Windsor. And it's that same thing, right? Like just because the channels are there doesn't necessarily mean that the channel's right for your business. And so I think really understanding why you're there and how you're going to utilize it to drive profitable growth for your business, right, has got to be in the decision making.
Especially when there is an omni-channel component and you have some stores to manage and you have to drive traffic to those stores as opposed to your online traffic. So there is an element of omni-channel, which is very core in your business. What about you, Aaron, in mostly your DTC business? Do you have a different approach?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to drive people to stores, so we're a little differentiated that way. But the flip side of diversification is not necessarily risk mitigation. That's probably the most important reason why. But tactical optimization is the other reason that we love it. If the Facebook algorithm blows up, we can shift to spend to TikTok or Pinterest. If CPMs spike due to election stuff, we could shift back to Facebook, which seems to have lower CPMs and less election spending right now. So optimization and really honing in on your target ROAS is the other reason to make sure that you are diversified so you can pivot when these things come up.
Mm-hmm. So what is truly the recipe to just not rely on the meta and the traditional user suspects? Like, I know we've discussed a lot today, TikTok and YouTube. Like, what are the channels? Where do we want to be playing next?
I think it depends on your business. For us, our customer is very active on social, and so that's really important. She is also someone who is heavily on her phone and on apps. So marketplaces are also incredibly important, especially when it comes to brand discovery. There are certain channels we're going to decide to be on simply because it's going to drive brand awareness just by being in the mix and driving us into the consideration set.
What about the audience, Aaron? Is there any specific you can share with us about what you've tried to segment the audience, do more work around targeting, to go deeper into these more traditional channels, but explore the new ones too?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a constant debate on targeting, and I think this is where channel mix also comes into play. On some channels, we're finding that it's really at this point in the level of sophistication of the AI algorithm targeting, better not to target. So we're pretty hands-off these days on Google with PMax. On TikTok, we're almost completely unconstrained. Facebook, we're a little more targeted still. We haven't been able to scale ASC enough to really go full hands-off. But other channels like Pinterest, we're very hands-on and we don't trust their AI product at all. Sorry, Pinterest. Yet, hopefully it's getting better.
That's really interesting because for us, we're not on PMax very much at all because we've had the opposite experience. And we focus a lot more on targeting there. And we just recently started playing in some upper funnel stuff on Google and utilizing it in a different way, which has been really interesting in that it has driven a ton of new traffic in, but it's not converting traffic. And so right now we're trying to understand, what is that doing for brand awareness? Is that also helping us to drive traffic into the stores because she's seeing us more on Google when she's in the searching process and then she's going in store to convert. And so what's nice about Google is that you can see that attribution of in-store visits coming afterwards. And then to your point, I think we're similar on channels like TikTok where it's a little bit wider open, definitely on Meta, a little bit more targeted, yeah.
And even though we're exploring these new channels, as we started with, 85% of the ad spends are still happening on traditional acquisition channel, the Meta, and obviously Google Ads. What can we do to optimize those ads, and how is content playing a great role in this strategy?
Yeah, content is hugely important, both visually as well as in terms of copy and messaging. To your point with AI and ChatGPT, and really coming up with different ad variations and being able to iterate very quickly and do a ton of testing. I think the most important thing is you have to continually test. And also trends change a lot. And so the example I would use maybe is homecoming, right? Like there are core homecoming terms that we know we're going to go after in the middle of homecoming season. There are also things that are going to trend in the moment this year that weren't trending last year. So this year, yellow homecoming dresses took off, and it wasn't something that was right. It wasn't in our original copy on our bottom of the page, SEO copy. It wasn't in any of our original ad sets or ad campaigns. And so you also have to be able to react quickly in the moment. And that's where things like AI and utilizing ChatGPT can really come into play and enable you to be a little bit more nimble and react quickly in the moment.
Mm-hmm. For DTC brands, it's incredibly important to focus on that content strategy as well, because you don't have necessarily the stores to support. How do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, I think creative is really table stakes for any channel. Like if you can't do the creative properly and at the scale that the channel requires it, I mean, especially for TikTok, for example, you probably just shouldn't be doing the channel. You're going to have higher CPMs. You'll probably just spike frequency. You will not see the returns at all. So I think the creative is really table stakes and making sure that you have not just the test plan where you look at a channel, you say, what's it going to take to be statistically significant? How are we going to measure it? Can we do a geolift test for incrementality? And do we have both the ad dollars to support that and the creative to support that? That's the only way that we would even consider testing a new channel.
Interesting to know what's your perspective on getting those teams in-house versus working with some agencies. A lot of our clients come to us and ask us for some advice on like whether they should be working with an agency or like building those teams in-house. What has been your experience for you, Erin? Like what are the challenges of building a team in-house when it comes to advertising?
I think it's really important to differentiate between new channels where no one really knows what they're doing, in which case you should just do it in-house. There's no reason to hire an agency, versus well-established channels where you really benefit from institutional knowledge across many clients that an agency can bring to the table. So like for TikTok, I literally said in my group, who wants to try out this new channel? I'm taking volunteers, and a creative marketing person was like, oh, I love TikTok, I'll run it. And she's still running the channel. But some of the more traditional channels like paid search, or even, well, Meta, you can debate either way now that ASC is getting more popular, where you really need, it's complicated and you need to know best practices. I do like going to agencies sometimes over in-house even.
Catherine, what about the measurement? Like, do you measure everything in-house? Do you have teams in-house working on implementing new tools, data to just learn from that audience?
We do both, and I think just going back to the agency versus in-house team piece of it as well, I think what I would add to that is, even if it's a channel that's been around for a long time, if it's something that you're going into for the first time where you don't have that expertise in-house, that's also a really great time to reach out and use an agency. I think one of the things I will say about having an in-house team is that the one thing that an in-house team gives you as a brand that an agency can't is that they are with you full time. You are their only client. They are going to know your customer better, your product better. They're going to understand your business goals and objectives better because that's the only thing that they're focused on. And so for us, we tend to run everything in-house, except for when we're trying a new channel where we may not have the resources to kind of go after that a little bit. When it comes to measurement, there's so much that's out there. And I think the most important thing around measurement is to make sure that you really understand your data sources and that you're triangulating across multiple sources, right? So understanding that if you're pulling direct from a Meta, that is a Meta singular view of what is going on. If you are pulling from a Google Analytics, you are looking at a last click across all of your channels. If you're pulling data out of Shopify, and you have to, I think, be able to understand contextually the source of the data and the view that you're getting, and then understand how all of those metrics work together to really understand what's going on with your business.
Yeah, wherever humanly possible, we always default to incrementality tests, and we measure incrementality both across Shopify and Amazon, which are our two main channels, and make sure, again, that we design the channel entrance properly to make sure that we hit significance in a geolift holdout test, if at all possible. If not, we'll do a time series or regression analysis with the understanding that it's far less concrete and reliable data.
Mm-hmm. Let's discuss budgeting as well, because I think you are in a more complex business in the sense that you have to spread everything along the year as opposed to more seasonal businesses which do invest massively into Q4. Can we discuss a little bit based on the specificity of each business? We touched upon like a few trends in your apparel business. How does she shop, and how do you spread the budget based on this?
Yeah, so we set our budget a little bit more based on funnel. So when it comes to upper funnel brand awareness, we set a fixed budget for each month in terms of what we're going to go after. When we're talking about bottom of the funnel, ROAS driven channels, that is where once we set a goal, if we hit it, it's a flex budget. And the performance team running that can continue to spend and scale as long as we're continuing to hit that ROAS, because we don't want to leave dollars on the table. Our primary ROAS-driven channels up to this point have been paid search. I think what's been really interesting for us and has surprised us in the last year is TikTok Shop, where we've not only found scale, we found scale at ROAS, and so we've actually started shifting some of the dollars over from the paid search side to really kind of lean into that and ramp and scale there. And I think what I will say the most important piece is that your budget is a living document, right? And you shouldn't set it at the beginning of the year and then just do that. Even within a month, from week to week, every Monday when we meet and we go through numbers, we'll start shifting dollars around between different channels to react to where we're seeing the opportunity.
And you're constantly doing this depending on the different
Constantly.
channels and whether you're trying to bring traffic to the website or to the stores.
What we're seeing, you know, there were a couple channels last week where we all of a sudden saw CPCs jump up really quickly. And so we pulled back some dollars from there and we shifted some dollars over to a different channel to try to react to that. You have to be looking at all of those metrics and really understanding not just CPCs, but even CPMs and impressions if you're looking for brand awareness and what's going on in that space. And did I all of a sudden lose impressions by 50 cents because CPMs just jumped because we're a couple weeks out from an election, right? And all of a sudden inventory's gone. And so you just have to continually, you have to know what metrics you're looking at and you have to keep a constant eye on them. You can't ever stop. Yeah.
What about you, Aaron, with Newton? Is it the same approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably on the lucky side in that we don't have hard and set budgets. So at Newton, we're completely tactical. If CPMs spike, we'll just go dark. Like it doesn't matter. There's no point in chasing the business. And then on the flip side, when CPMs plummet, efficiency rises. Like during the beginning of COVID, we went all in and we like doubled the business in just about a year because everyone was pulling back, and so we saw the opportunity there as a D2C brand. So I think if you have the luxury to do it and you're not public, being highly tactical, and nothing would help that more than being properly diversified across channels and being able to see what's happening in each channel, being able to pivot to the ones that are working well and really lean in is really important. But yeah, we're not seasonal. Women are pregnant year round. We go nearly dark in December because there's no reason for us to pay the high CPMs.
No, that makes total sense. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close these sessions? Any last thoughts about this topic, which everyone was very excited about?
I mean, one of the things I think I've spoken about it 3 times now already, but if people on your team are passionate about a channel and you think there's any chance the channel might work, give them a little side passion project and say, okay, here's $5,000 a month, go spend it, see what you can do. We've had some really big wins that way, and you end up with a team that is really motivated and invested in seeing your success. So that's one really nice way to achieve channel diversification.
The only other thing I would add is, as you're thinking about your budget for next year, try to always leave a little something in there that's an unknown line item, right? Because there's going to be something new that's going to come along at some point that you're going to want to be able to chase after. And also, don't worry about having a plan that is 100% baked, because the reality is you're never going to follow your plan 100% to the letter, right? So don't be afraid to just test and iterate continually and be a little bit more nimble and quick, so that you're out there and you're testing and you're hopping on things early.
And learning along the way every day. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this session. It was a pleasure having you. It was great to spend the day with everyone. We're closing this session in the theater. I'm very excited to be with you today.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks.